Hey everyone, I'm Vanessa Cesara and together with me is Miss Llewellyn Di Castillo and Miss Clarice Palacio and we are the Group 1. We will discuss the topic grading and reporting, but before we tackle about our each assigned topic, let us first know the objectives for this lesson. So at the end of the session, the students will be able to first, explain the functions of grading and reporting. Second is to identify the components of the grading system. And the third is to distinguish between criterion reference and norm reference grading. The fourth is to compute grades in accordance with the DepEd policy on the grading system. And the last would be to cite points to observe when reporting students' progress to both students and parents. In this pre-recorded video, it will contain the following: the 7 things to communicate to students before testing, that is according to Bobowski 2017, and functions of grading and reporting systems that will be tackled by me, and the components of grading system, why communicate assessment results that will be tackled by Ms. Llewellyn, and reporting students' progress and grades to parents. So why we need to learn this lesson? So as future educators, we'll be providing information to students and parents about the students' achievement and progress. And it also indicates the areas for further development. So hence, it is very important for us to know the functions and components of the grading system, in which we should learn and know how to compute grades in accordance with the DepEd policy on the grading system. In order for us to ensure consistency and fairness in the assessment of learning, it is necessary for us to understand the components of the grading system. So it will serve as a guide for us to be prepared and equip ourselves in the field of teaching. Now let us start to tackle the topic about the 7 things to communicate to students before testing and the functions of grading system and reporting system. So based on the author's experience as well as the other teachers, both as parent and as a school head, grades are very contentious. So when we say contentious, it is likely to cause disagreement or an argument or dispute about an issue. There is no card giving day where there is no parent complaint or question about their child's grade. So these complaints come in this form. The grade should be higher. It should not be a failing grade. Teacher does not explain well, and as well as teacher did not accept a project submitted an hour or so after his or her deadline. Therefore, grading and reporting as a way of communicating assessment results should never be taken for granted. So we cannot blame students and parents for their grade consciousness. Ours is still a world that puts emphasis in grades. So when you enroll in a college course, you have to meet a minimum grade point average that is required. Also, when you apply for and enjoy a scholarship grant, you have to meet and maintain a certain grade. And when you apply for a job, you have to present your grades because all of the things that people ask, grades are always a part. So grades are indeed important, but the competency that grades should reflect are as important as well. So it will help the students to get good grades if teacher discuss assessment and grades before conducting the assessment. Reviewing test results with students after the assessment test is important. However, communicating with students as a class or individually before assessment is equally important. So here are the 7 things to consider discussing with your students before assessing. That is according to Bobowski 2017. So the first thing to communicate to student before testing is to explain where the test fits in the bigger picture. So any given test or assessment is just one piece of their overall progress as students. So this one test on this day is not the sole measure of their potential or their future. So a better understanding of context will help them better understand how it all fits together. So second thing to communicate to students before testing is to share how the test results will affect their overall class grade. So often, students are unaware where they are being tested or why the teachers need the data they are looking for. Is it going to be used for setting student or class goal, establishing a grade, or for placement purpose? So it it is better to share this information with your student before the test so that they will understand clearly what the test score will mean to them. So the third thing to communicate to students before testing is to preempt questions about what their data will look like and who will be seeing it. So depending on the age of your student, you should consider sharing with them what results you'll be receiving after the test, what results they as students will receive, and what they will be shared with their parents. Now let's move on to the fourth thing to communicate to students before testing. The fourth one is to take the fear out of testing jargon. So words like evaluate, criteria, evidence, and scores can be scary for some students. While they may seem obvious and interchangeable to you as a teacher, it can help students if you explain these terms to them and set their minds at ease. Now, to move on to the fifth thing to communicate to students before testing is to clarify the testing environment. So some students are less familiar than the others when it comes to testing and how the testing schedules can interrupt a given week. So providing better clarifications can help elevate the students' stress. So let them know if it will be one-day test or if it will happen over a period of days. So provide insights into breaks, whether they can use the bathrooms or restrooms, and what they should bring with them on their testing days. Now let us move on to the sixth thing to communicate to students before testing, which is to make any transitions to computer or tablets easily. So if there is a computer lab being used as part of the testing process, be sure that the students know where the lab is and how the computer will be used as part of the test and how to log in. Now, for the last thing to communicate to students before testing is to provide the dates on the next assessment. So when you explain growth over time to students, it helps to share a basic schedule of how the assessments will be administered. So let them know when the next one will occur and whether it will be similar to the one they are preparing for. And those are the 7 things to communicate to students before testing according to Vygotsky 2017. Now let us move forward now to the functions of grading and reporting system. So these are the following functions of grading and reporting system. So what are these 3? So let us tackle first the function of grading and reporting system by enhancing the students' learning. So we or teachers can enhance the students' learning through clarifying the instructional objectives for them, showing students' strengths and weaknesses, providing information on personal and social development, enhancing students' motivation such as short-term goals, and indicating where teaching might be modified. So these can be achieved through day-to-day tests and feedback and integrated periodic tests. Second function of the grading and reporting system, which is it is to report to parents and guardians, where grading and reporting system is also to inform parents and guardians of the students on the progress of their wards. Likewise, grades and reports communicate objectives to parents, so it can help promote learning and likewise communicate how well objectives were met, so parents can better plan ahead for their students. And for the third and last function of the grading and reporting system is for the administrative and guidance uses. So the administrative and guidance purpose of grading and reporting consists in first, helping to decide promotion, graduation, honors, and athletic eligibility of the student. Second is to report achievements to other schools or to employers. And the last would be to provide inputs for realistic educational education and personal counseling. So those 3 main purposes of grading and reporting by no means exhaust all possible uses of the activity. So the main point, however, is that grades and reports cards should promote and enhance learning rather than frustrate and discourage students. So in many schools, report cards are given to students and then parents are asked to sign these report cards. So most schools call for parent-teacher conference or set aside card-getting day for this purpose. So that would be all for my topic, and thank you for listening, and stay tuned for the continuation of our facilitation by Miss Loeline D.
Good day everyone, and I am the second presenter from the Group 1. I am Llewellyn Castillo, and we'll be tackling about the components of a grading system. According to Irosian and Russell 2008, there are three components of a grading system, which is the first, standards of components. Second is the aspect of performance. Third is weighting the different kinds of evidence. So the standards of comparison. In relation to the standards of comparison, the following questions are asked. First, what standard for comparison will you use for grading? Second, will you compare student performance to other students' performance, which is the norm reference grading? Third, will you compare student performance with the predetermined established standard, which is the criterion reference grading? And lastly, will you compare it to what a student is able to do, which is the learning potential or self-reference? And if we go and as an educator, if we go out based or competence based, we will be for criterion reference grading, which is the predetermined standards are the intended learning outcomes presented and explained at the beginning of every lesson. So second is the aspect of performance. There is one question here: what aspects of performance must be graded? So there are three kinds of academic performances, which is the quiz and test results, the paper and pencil test. Second is the assignments, and third is the products and performances. Like for example, oral reports, projects, interviews, and portfolios. So the example for this is if one group of educators claim only academic performance must be graded. Like the educator might choose the quiz for the assessment or the assignment, products, and performances. So lastly is the weighting different kinds of evidence. So here is the table, which is this refers to how much weight is given to the different aspects of components of a student grade. Like this evidence is from the DepEd grading system issued in DepEd Order 8, Section 2015. So as you can see, the written work from the language AP and ESP is 30%, and to the science 40%, science math is 40%, and 20% for the MAPE, EPP, and EPP or PLE. So the components of the performance test, the language AP and ESP is 50%, science and math 40%, and 60% is the highest percentage here, as what you can see. This is from the MAPE, EPP, or TLE. And lastly is the quarterly assessment. For the language APSP is 20%, science and math is 20%, as well as the MAPE, EPP, TLE. So this is the weight of the components to grade 1 to 10. Next is the weight of the components. Sorry for the blurred presentation from this part. So here is the analysis of tables given above shows the DepEd puts the heaviest weight on the performance test from grade 1 and from grade 11 to 12. So from grades 1 to 10, the highest percentage, which is 60%, is given to music, arts, physical education, and health, which is MAPE, education, edukasyong pantahanan at pangkabuhayan, EPP, home economics, and livelihood skills. And then in senior high school, the highest percentage also is 60%, understandably, is for the specialization subjects for the TACVOC, sports, and arts and design tracks. Obviously, MAPE-PP, the specialization subjects in the textbook, sports and arts and design tracks are dominantly skill subjects. So why? So as educator, why we need to communicate assessment results? So we document our assessment processes for accountability, institutional, and individual memory. So first is documenting the decisions made means learned lessons, like the assessment results that have been roughly discussed should be communicated clearly and accurately to the learners as well as the parents for improved learning. So when sharing assessment results is an opportunity to tell an important, meaningful story, which is the role is to educate stakeholders about the context, background, methods, results of assessment, and to involve them in making sense of the results and identifying also for the possible solutions or for the next steps. So this sharing of assessment results can be done during the parents-teachers conference. So for the some pointers in communicating assessment results, so in order to effectively communicate our assessment results, we need to do the following. So first is to establish learning outcomes related to what we are assessing. Secondly is to document the process we use to assess the outcomes. And third is tie the results back to our learning outcomes to communicate whether the program or service worked as we intended. And lastly is to take note of decisions made as a result of the assessment process. This is the essence of outcomes-based teaching and learning. So we all agree that students are key education. So as an educator, we agree that students are key education stakeholders. When they are involved, when the students or the learners involved in the assessment process and their own learning, and then the result of that is an improvement in achievement. Also, this objective, transparent, and respectful assessment feedback towards the students drives home the points which the students need to work upon. So that's all for my topic. I hope you understand well and acquired some knowledge and information. Thank you, everyone.
Good day everyone, I am Clarice Palacio. In this video presentation, I am going to discuss the topic of giving feedback to students and parents after assessment. So before we go on to our main discussion, let us first have a review on feedback. So what is feedback? Feedback is any response regarding a student's performance or behavior, and it can be verbal, written, or gestural. So the purpose of feedback in the assessment and learning process is to improve a student's performance and not to put a damper on it. So giving feedback is never easy. It is important that the feedback process is handled delicately. And here are some points that can guide the teachers or the teacher as an assessor during the feedback. So first is a cliche which works effectively is to open the session with a positive feedback. Next is to know the expectation of the student or the parent from the feedback session, and it acts as a compass for the teacher as an assessor. So we must be very specific and stick to the predefined parameters or competencies to make references. And next is to cite examples whenever possible to help the student or the parent understand better. You also should involve the student or the parent. So feedback has to be a dialogue and not a monologue, which means that student and parent should be given an opportunity to discuss the students or the parents' aspirations, motivations, and experiences of the assessments. So we must be patient and display great listening skills to create the required trust and rapport with the student or the parent. Next is to allow the student or the parent to explain the intent behind his or her action and differing option whenever appropriate. So we must refrain from passing a judgmental statement because your statements have to be suggestive rather than stated as an absolute truth. So the feedback provider has to remember that feedback is also a mechanism to learn for people. So let us make a reference to this Johari window given illustration. So here is the Johari window model. So a Johari window model is a simple and useful tool for illustrating and improving self-awareness and mutual understanding between individuals within a group. So here is an example or an illustration of a Johari window model. The feedback should help the students or the parents become aware of both their areas of strengths and areas for development. So it should encourage the students or the parents to do introspection and help them draw inferences and reach their conclusions. So people are very good at hiding any feelings of hurt and upset. However, beneath the facade lies a demoralized and demotivated individual. So for example, some students might start thinking, if that is what I am like, am I really going to get where I want? Or is this what they think of me? So such a situation requires very careful handling of feedback or else it can become a road to frustration for some students or parents. So at this juncture, we are going to discuss reporting students' progress and grades to parents. So students' progress and grades are reported to parents through a report card, parent-teachers conferences, and writing conferences. So first, we have the report card. So the report card is a standard method of reporting students' progress and grades to parents. So here is an example of a report card of the junior and senior high school from the Department of Education. For a more meaningful reporting of students' progress, the meaning of grades are given. So the DepEd gives the following grade interpretation. So here is an illustration of the grade interpretation. Report cards convey letter grades like A, B, C, D, and F, and sometimes with plus or minus. So a student may get an A plus or A-, B plus or B-. So this is what we do in Xavier University. So some report cards also convey numerical grades such as 85 in math, 93 in English, and 88 in biology. Still, other report cards simply have pass or fail. And the DepEd student report card include affective characteristics such as makadiyos, makatao, makabansa, at makakalikasan. So these are the grade interpretation for junior school, high school, and senior high school. We also have a teacher-parent conferences. So according to Dorham 2006, he asserts that parent and teacher conferences are both a responsibility and an opportunity. So the education of the learner is the primary responsibility of parents. And in this task of educating children or the students, the parents are assisted by the school. So for the benefit of children, then it is best for teachers and parents to come together to discuss their children's progress. So parent and teacher conferences are a perfect avenue for this purpose. And it has been a practice of schools to set aside a day for a report card distribution, which is at the same time the opportunity for parents and teachers to confer regarding their child's performance. So here are some reminders for schools or teachers to get the most from parent-teacher conferences. First is to announce the date for card giving in advance, or better still, the school calendar, which should be given at the beginning of the school year, must be already included and it must include the dates for the card giving and the parent-teacher conferences. So these are important because parents are busy and can't just be there at the school to beck and call. Next is the most important part, which is to be positive in approach. So you must start the conference with something positive and maintain a positive atmosphere. So there is always something good in every student. And even if a student has performed poorly, try to at least find some areas in which the student has performed well. So next thing to remember is to be objective, which you should be positive and be truthful and honest to the report. You must give an accurate picture of the student's performance in order not to give false hopes to the parents. And most especially, you must have a listening ear. So act with empathy. Parents are parents, so they will tend to favor their children. So you must act with empathy when you are interacting or having a conversation with them. Next is to don't project an omniscient image. So you don't know all the answers to the questions. So you must refer the parents to the right person if you don't really know the answer to it. And next is to practice good communication skills. So we all know that communication skills is really an important part in the grading and assessment. So communicate criteria for grading, have a dialogue and not a monologue where the only one talking is you or only the parents. So you must have a dialogue and speak with each other. So next is to don't talk about other students. And the focus of the parent-teacher conference should only be the parent's child, and never ever compare the child with other students. And lastly is to end with an encouraging note in the same way that you began with a positive note. So it is not the end of the world. So you must think positively all the time. So for our next topic, I have a question for you. Why is there a need to report or communicate assessment results? Do you have any idea why? So we document our assessment process for accountability. So teaching leads to assess learning, reporting, and communicating assessment results. So these assessment results should be communicated clearly and accurately to the learners as well as the parents for them to improve their learning. Next is sharing assessment results is an opportunity to tell an important and meaningful story for both the parents and the students. So your role is to educate the stakeholders about the context, the background, methods, and results of the assessment, and to involve them in making sense of the results and identifying possible solutions or next steps. So this is what we call reporting. And lastly, we all agree that students are the key education stakeholders. So when they are involved in the assessment process and in their own learning, the result is an improvement in achievement. So an objective, transparent, and respectful assessment feedback to students drives home the points that the student needs to work upon. So that is the end of my discussion. That's all for my topic for today. And thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have learned something from me. God bless!